Well, good morning. It's a fantastic morning here in the great city of Fort Wayne. We're glad that you're here with us. I'm a newcomer to Fort Wayne. I've only been here since '86. I grew up in Boston, but it's fantastic to be here with you today, and I want to share a couple of ideas with you. First off, Rotary, District 6540. We're the northern third of Indiana. We're one of 535 districts across the world. Rotary has 1.2 million people worldwide in over 200 countries. Here in our district, we have 2,300 members and 57 clubs. So far to date, out of the 57 clubs, I've visited 53. So it's been a pleasure because each one is different. Each community is different. And it's great to see Rotarians around the world. We have a motto, service above self. But more importantly, we also have what we call a standard, the four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? This is our mantra. My club, I'm from the Anthony Wayne Club here in Fort Wayne, we add one other. Is it fun? For us, we enjoy each other, we enjoy getting together, we enjoy doing projects together. You here today are involved in a program that changes theme each year, and you get a chance to discuss and promote change and become involved in finding solutions to current world issues. You are both visionaries and potential game changers. We call you people of action, and we have an acronym, JET, J-E-T, joining leaders together, exchanging ideas, and taking action. We encourage you to do that today. Now, Rotary and science and technology have been partners since it first started. Rotary started in 1905. We've been involved in water initiatives, also clean energy. Well, one of our signature projects is polio. How many of you are familiar with polio? In 1986, we formed a private partnership and public partnership with the Gates organization, UNICEF, our own CDC. And in 1988, it was interesting. We had over 350,000 cases of polio that year. Between the years of 1940 and 1950, we had over 500,000 deaths from polio. The last death from polio occurred in 1979. And I'm happy to report today that we only have 88 cases of polio in 2 countries right now. We have been involved in finding ways to eradicate polio. I have a saying that science fiction quite often leads to science fact. If you think about it, the submarine, Jules Verne. Rocket ships, Jules Verne. Remote medicine. You think of Star Trek, perhaps. I'm a Star Trek fan. I'll be the first to admit it in that sense. Also, if you think about our missions, manned missions to the moon, to a space station, all of these are results of visions that someone had in technology. Today, as you explore and learn about the topic of technology, think differently, think big. You are only constrained by your imagination. And what may seem impossible today may be commonplace tomorrow. I want to thank you for coming. And I also encourage you to enjoy this day because it's a window into our collective future. So enjoy it, and I want to thank you very much.
And I just want to thank you for being here. I would like to introduce Dr. Morton Marcus at this time. He is an amazing economist. How many of you like economics? Everyone raise your hands. Yeah, so economics makes the world go round. We have an esteemed speaker today. I want you to think about what he has to say about jobs of the future, because you're not just here to have a day outside of class. You are here to find out what you need to know about future employment. How many of you want to have amazing careers? Of course you do. Okay. Let's welcome Dr. Morton Marcus.
I had to get hooked up, not in the way you were thinking. Anyway, yes, I am an economist. I don't apologize for that. Many people think that economists are arrogant, nasty people. That's not true. I'm arrogant and nasty, but it's not true of economists in general. I'm basically a rather humble person. Sir, you're sitting down here and looking learned, so I won't talk to you. How about this fellow over here? Yes, yes. Do you know the difference between modesty and humility? Excuse me? What is it? I asked you. I asked you. Do you know the difference? Okay, that's fine. That's the answer I was expecting. I thought this guy would fake it. Anyway, modesty is when you're standing without clothing in front of a window and you feel that you ought to pull the curtains or draw the shades or whatever you might do because you don't want anyone to see what you have. And humility is when you're standing without clothing in front of an open window and you recognize that no one's interested in what you have. Yes, thank you for laughing. That's good. Economists should be laughed at, and that doesn't happen often enough. But then I feel the same way about most other professions. Today we're going to talk about jobs of the future. And there's a four-letter word that describes the attitude in this country about future jobs. That four-letter word is fear. Fear is what so many people are spreading about the future of automation, the future of education, what you as students should be doing. And I don't have that fear. Now you can say, well, you're too old to have that fear. Your career is behind you. I spent 33 years at Indiana University teaching, which is one of the reasons that I'm sort of suspicious of the sound system here at a Purdue installation. But let me tell you, by the way, that this Purdue campus is the best regional campus that I have seen in this state, whether it's an IU regional campus or a Purdue regional campus. This one, from an architectural point of view, from just simplicity of getting around, is one of the best. I can't speak about the teaching. It's the same way my students have come to me sometimes and said, well, you just gave me an A+, and that means that my 4.0 average is ruined. And I tell them that I can't be responsible for the grading of other professors. Thank you, somebody laughed. That's good. What is the problem with you that you can't relax? Donald Trump is president? That is not the reason. The reason is that somehow you feel constrained. And I don't believe that it's Donald Trump that is constraining you. In fact, if Donald Trump doesn't make you laugh, who would? Okay. Now, we don't really have a lot of time today, but I want to tell you that I feel that the jobs of the future are not what we are being told. Yes, there will be many jobs in technology, and technology will have a wonderful, wonderful impact upon jobs. And people will say, it's going to be unemployment. There has been unemployment because of technology. No, there's been unemployment because Americans have been freed from doing some of the very, very boring, mind-stultifying jobs that they have had. You may not know it, but Indiana produced 25% of all of the televisions produced in the world at one time. That was the early 1950s. I toured the RCA plant. Some of you have heard of RCA. It's a company that now is basically dead. I toured the RCA plant in Bloomington, which was a major plant that they had in Indiana. And there was a woman who was there on the assembly line, and her job was to turn to her left and pick something up, and turn to her right and put it down and twist it. And turn to her left, turn to her right. Is that something a human being should do? Should a human being be stuck in a metal cage for an entire day putting his or her arm out to take money from someone who's leaving a parking lot? Is that a job for a human being? When I was probably about your age, I had already been thrown out of one university, and I was working downtown Chicago, and they were installing elevators. Not just elevators, but elevators that you could punch the button and go to the floor that you wanted. Previously, there was a man, because this wasn't women's work, but a man sitting in the elevator, generally someone older, who pushed the lever to the left to make the elevator go up, or to the right to make it go down. All day long. That's what he did. And all 42 elevator operators in that building were gone by the end of summer because they had installed these new elevators. People say, what did they do? They were unemployed. Well, some of them went on to other jobs. I think many of them became bank loan officers, or they became directors of admissions at universities. What was the job for a loan officer? What's the job for a director of admissions? Admit, don't admit. Admit, don't admit. It's the same gesture. It's the same idea. She can smile. She can smile. But the rest of them at that table are having trouble moving their lips. Just to get a smile, to show their teeth would be impolite. Anyway, I go on. We're being told that the jobs of the future depend on you studying STEM. That's what we hear all over the place. Mitch Daniels, former governor of Indiana, now the president of Purdue University, tells us you should come to Purdue to study STEM. What is STEM? Tell me, what is STEM? I'm sorry, I'm picking on people on the right. We'll pick on somebody on the left. There. Excuse me? I didn't even point at you when you come up with an answer. That's wonderful. And you bailed him out. You owe her. Okay, tell us again. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Right? Okay. What will happen to you when you study science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? You will move in the direction of someone who has studied science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. What will you know about history? Less than you should. What will you know about politics, sociology, even economics? What will you know about biology? You're going to work that phone camera? Or is that a device to record who I am and turn it over to the Purdue Extension Service, which has an agent in every county?
Either way you like it.
Either way I like it. You got it now? You got it, okay. Very good. I'm such a cooperative person. Yes, these people lost their jobs as elevator operators, but what kind of a job was it? We should be thinking about transforming our society into a society where human beings provide opportunity for other human beings. Now, manufacturing does that. That's exactly what manufacturing does. What is manufacturing? Well, you say it's taking this from here and putting it there, or developing a machine that will take it from here to there. Yes, that's a very fine and noble activity. Manufacturing is the process of developing the means to free the human soul, to free a human being from tedium. That's why Henry Ford developed the engine that he developed, was to reduce farm labor. to reduce the tedium that he saw in his father's life and to provide good, strong equipment. Is this gentleman down here on his phone? Yes. You were asked to turn your phone off, and I ask you to listen to me and not get involved with your phone. Okay. And I don't want to hear your response. Henry Ford and many others invented what they invented to help people be more like people. Otis developed the elevator. I love Otis as a company. They had a plant in Bloomington, and they made elevators, and they tested them there. The Otis Elevator Company, manufacturer of elevators, tested their equipment in a one-story building. Good, we got a laugh. Thank you, thank you. I don't know why you're not with the rest of the group, but obviously it's because you can laugh. It's been a very long time since people realized that technology is not a miracle, it's a blessing. It is a blessing in that it relieves people of the tedium of the work that they started with. If you're religious, you'll look at the book of Genesis and you'll ask yourself, Adam and Eve were thrown out of the Garden of Eden. They had to start the first suburb, and they went on and had to do hard work. Science and technology, based on engineering, which is based on mathematics, has helped tremendously. But it's been going on for a long time, and this is nothing new. We shouldn't have people going around telling us that what we face now has never been faced before. I can imagine the first caveman says to his colleagues, he says, "Did you see that Irving invented an axe?" And the second caveman says, "You don't mean it, an axe? That changes everything. What will they think of next?" And the third caveman says, "You notice how fast things are changing around here? First the spear, now the axe. It makes your head spin." Good, good. That's a joke I made up just yesterday. That's the reason I had to read it. So, we are not living in extraordinary times, as many people would like to tell you. They say the speed of change is accelerating. I don't believe it. I believe that all of our ancestors have seen tremendous change in their lives. Tremendous change. What was one of the most important developments that we've seen that revolutionized the world? The steam engine. What was perhaps even more important? The telegraph. The telegraph, for the first time in human history, with the exception of smoke signals, first time in human history, made it possible for the message to move faster than the messenger. What a world that was. What a world it was when William Howard Taft, as the President of the United States in 1912, could follow the Chicago convention of the Republican Party by telephone. What an invention it was when young people in Indiana could listen to things that were happening all across the nation because of radio. You say, well, but these were isolated things. No, they weren't. Each one of them meant a whole host of new inventions that came in and revolutionized the way people lived. And many people said, oh, this is terrible, this is terrible. The automobile was called the devil's vehicle. We accept the automobile. You accept cell phones. You accept computers. What's happened to this world? Even your grandparents have accepted cell phones and computers. We have become so accustomed to the idea and so enamored with the fact that technology liberates the human soul. But are we educating people to serve other people, to work for other people? My feeling is the jobs of the future that will have the most meaning and the most rewards, including economic rewards, will be jobs that serve people. And in a way, we're beginning to see it. We're seeing it right down at the lowest level of service. We're seeing it with people demanding $15 an hour for those who work as waiters and waitresses and janitors and other people. Janitors are perhaps one of the most important aspects of public health in this country. It's the janitors who help keep the restrooms clean that make it safe for you to use those facilities. And how many times do you show any respect for the janitors in a building? And what kind of pay do they receive? They are the backbone of public health in the United States and get no recognition. That's going to change. It's going to change because technology will eliminate the job of the janitor. And janitors will find work serving people in different ways. Only if they're educated in those kinds of things that develop empathy for other people. I'm not convinced that science, technology, engineering, and mathematics develops empathy. And empathy is what this world needs most of all. It's the lack of empathy that makes this fellow probably intolerant of the people who do support Donald Trump. I don't have much respect for people who support Donald Trump, but I certainly do have empathy for them. I am concerned about the deformed brains. I am concerned enough that I spend a good deal of my free time on the internet writing to them and inviting them to write to me. And they do, in great numbers. And I try to respond to each one of them. Very often my responses are too long, and sometimes they're nasty, in return for the nastiness that they heap on me. But I stay in touch with them. I talk to them. I work with them. You could say I'm an evangelical economist. I'm trying to convert people to sensible behaviors. But this is not the same thing. It's not the same thing as having what I consider an education that does not encourage empathy and an understanding of human history. This to me is very important. Oh, goodness, a sunburn is what I'm going to get here now. Did I ask for that? Did anyone ask for that? You asked for it. My respect for you, John, has just gone down a little bit. We had people sleeping here, and now you woke them up. I just can't understand why you did that. I talked about empathy. You see, don't you have any feelings for these people who are sleeping? I do. I understand. I understand that the fellow with his cell phone over here is bored to death. Yes, you are. Come on, admit it. You got a question for me? Good. Let's do that. Let's start.
All right, let's do this. You want to come over here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And if there are any additional questions, which I hope there will be for our amazing economist, you can also step over to that mic.
2 microphones, no waiting. Go ahead.
I'm Glenn, I go to the South Side, and I wanted to ask you something. A lot of the technological advancements that you talked about provided additional jobs, but automation's main function is to take away menial labor from unskilled workers. So how do you reconcile?
No, not right, not right. It's to improve the quality of service to people. We may take jobs away from some workers, but I have also seen the fact that what happens, my wife is a nurse, she's a much better nurse now that she works with a great deal of technology. It hasn't taken anything away from her. What it does, what you're talking about is a small part of what technology has done, in that it has substituted for people who were not properly educated. Education is the key for human advancement, to take advantage of the technology.
I agree with that, but I think
Good.
then you have to reconcile that fact with the fact that education is incredibly expensive in this country, and oftentimes unattainable for a lot of people. For example, I go to the South Side, and it's really, really hard for a lot of people at South Side to see themselves going to college because they come from uneducated parents, and they're first generation, or they would be first generation college students, and they tend to live below the poverty line. So how do we make college more attainable for people to make them more skilled workers if unskilled labor is becoming?
We're right now in the middle of an election era where we hear people talking about making college without charge. That's very expensive to do, but we certainly could lower the cost of education. The first thing I would do is get rid of a great number of university administrators. Since I'm following a university administrator, that might not be a good thing to say, but we had a vice president at IU in Bloomington where I came in one day. I had a low opinion of him to begin with, but I came in one day, it was lunchtime, into the administration building, and he was at the Xerox machine, copy machine. We used to call them Xerox machines. And I said, well, they finally found something you can do. It's necessary, I think, to recognize that we have too much bureaucracy. The thing that stifles the federal government and the local governments, the thing that is a tremendous difficulty for business, is the amount of administration we have and the lack of freedom that most workers have in doing their jobs. If they are properly trained for their jobs, they don't need a great deal of supervision, and they certainly don't need as much administration. And we have built tremendous administrative structures. GM's major problem for years has been its administration. Many of America's largest companies are choking on their own administration. And of course, they can't recognize it because it's the administrators who get together at tables like these and then talk about ways of improving the company. But they don't get the workers in there and talk about it. We had a mayor in Indianapolis at one time, Stephen Goldsmith, who asked the people who fill the potholes, what's the best way to fill potholes? He didn't call in engineers. He didn't call in experts, consultants. I refuse to be a consultant. I'm an insultant. And I've done that for many companies. Told them that they don't know what they're doing. And I think I've been right. What we need to do in this country for education is to focus on education. And education is a very broad concept. It is not science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And you just look at Purdue University. It has a school of music. This campus has a music building for teaching. That's what it should be. then why do we try to push our students in a direction which I think is counterproductive? So that's my answer to your question. Okay, so where's the next one? What's the matter with the rest of you? This guy has the initiative at least to get his cell phone out. It's true, he got reprimanded for it, but he shows that initiative.
I think it would be nice to see an amazing, powerful young woman with a question.
Well, that's fine. But I don't know that this is an amazing or powerful young woman. The only thing I know is she raised her hand. And I think that your invitation to a young woman was inappropriate. I believe that is discriminatory behavior of the worst kind, which suggests that young women don't have the initiative to get up on their own. Young lady.
My apologies for making me binary statement. It's all right. Okay.
Okay, good.
So do you feel like we will eventually evolve too much? Like with jobs being lost and the population rising?
No. I think we have so many people at so many different stages in their lives that they need help, and it's the only help that they can really get is not going to come out of something created by science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I think we need caregivers in nursing homes. I think we need doctors who attend to pregnant women as opposed to giving them 15 minutes of time when they may need much more time. I think we need large numbers of people who understand human needs, and that those human needs can be greatly helped by science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but they cannot be satisfied by those skills.
Okay, so with like science
fiction and stuff like that, a lot of them have robots going to be our caretakers and stuff like that. Do you think eventually that will happen?
Sure.
Do you think that will
Sure.
be bad, though?
Sure, I think artificial intelligence will help quite a bit in these things. And there are times I wish that my parents had some. My mother was a very, very interesting person. She liked to tell jokes and insult people. It's where I picked it up. I remember the first time I was in a newspaper in Bloomington, I was talking to her on the phone, which I was required to do periodically, and she said, "What's new?" I said, "Well, I was on the front page of the newspaper." And she said, "What'd you do, rape somebody?" So that was my mother. Yes, you were about to say, I'm sorry, I interrupted your question. Do I think that robots are going to be taking care of us? In a sense, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yesterday I was visiting a friend in the hospital, and a robot came in, a rather tall, attractive young lady, but basically a robot. And she took his blood pressure, and she took his temperature, and she asked him how he felt, and she left.
So the jobs that are kind of like that are also then like what you were talking about before with
She didn't
GM and
say,
stuff?
she didn't give him any comfort, she didn't give him any help. She picked up the information that was needed by another robot that we call a doctor.
So we need to become more human.
I think we need to create an environment and an education system that teaches us something about our humanity.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next. Please, yes, there's somebody. Okay, raised her hand without, let's go to a microphone. Don't worry about this woman here.
Identifications, but I'm super glad that
Okay, we are talking about technological progress in the United States, but there are still countries they don't have an internet and cell phones. Can it be dangerous for humanity?
Can it be dangerous for humanity that there are other countries that don't have these things?
Yes, like this
Well,
difference.
they also don't have cars that do 120 miles an hour. And they don't have racetracks for cars that do 250 miles an hour. You know, what makes Indianapolis famous? It's the fact that people drive cars in an oval. There's nothing else that people think about when they think about Indianapolis, other than our terrible General Assembly. No, I don't think it's dangerous. I think that other countries will, as quickly as they can, if they can stop fighting each other, I think they can progress very rapidly because technology is becoming so inexpensive. Now, it's true we have a few companies that are profiting tremendously from cell phones. That's because we don't have enough companies that are making cell phones. We need much more competition. And patents are a way of reducing competition. I'm not against patents, I'm not against companies making money, but I am thoughtful of the fact that we do need more companies that can make these things. So the fact that the Chinese make cell phones is wonderful. I'm looking forward to the day that people in Tanzania are making cell phones. That's what we need. We need to get our technology to these countries. Now, that will have certain cultural displacement effects. There are people who have jobs today that will lose those jobs. In Malaysia, we still have people, despite the fact that Malaysia is a pretty well advanced country, still has people who are pulling rickshaws. I don't think seeing a 70-year-old man pulling a rickshaw through the streets is what we want to see. And I think that job will be replaced when we have motorcycles with a little seat behind them instead of somebody pulling the rickshaw. And the fact that he's without a job, maybe at 70, he deserves a rest. Or maybe he can become a graduate Olympic athlete, you know, a senior athlete. There are lots of possibilities for people. We don't have to think of the fact that a person loses a job means that they've lost their livelihood. That's why we have unemployment insurance. And that's why we have many programs that are designed to retrain people. The problem is most people don't want to be retrained. But if we can understand, well, let me give you an example. There was a girl in the elevator yesterday in a building I was in, and she had a sweatshirt on that said, "Dream and you can do it." Well, that was very nice. But I said to her, you know, it could say, "Learn and you can do it." And that's what we need to get across, is that it isn't just dreaming that's necessary, it's learning. And there are so many things to be learned. It's delightful. I don't know if that answers any part of your question.
Yeah, that answers. Thank you for your response.
Okay. Where else? Hey, over here, finally a fellow who's willing to stand up. How do you like that? My word, men are so suppressed in our society. It is really disgraceful.
I'm so sorry.
I don't think you were invited to speak. I was invited to speak. Okay.
I'm demonstrating empathy for your...
Well, thank you. Thank you. I don't want sympathy. I want empathy. Yes?
Erwin, I'm from Eastside Junior Senior High School. I'm curious on your thoughts. Do you think private tech will one day surpass, and its innovation will one day surpass the way governments have aided technological advancements through the years?
Do I think that the private...
Such as like SpaceX and Elon Musk having done what he's done thus far, as an example.
Yes, I do believe that that is true in many areas, but government and generally the military leads the way on advancement because so many business people, and I've talked to hundreds in this state, maybe thousands, so many business people are afraid to take a risk. So many business people are afraid to do something different from the way their fathers did it, or their mothers in some cases. We have at least in Indiana, I cannot speak for the entire nation, we have in Indiana a general idea that we're not going to try something that hasn't been tried before. Again, for those of you who are particularly religious, I want you to think about Adam and Eve being in the Garden of Eden, which is placed on the banks of the Wabash River. Can you think of any major institution on the banks of the Wabash River? Anyway, for those of you who don't know, it's It's at West Lafayette. If the Lord had put the Garden of Eden on the banks of the Wabash River, Eve would have come with the apple because it's an agricultural product. And she would have said to Adam, here, take a bite. And Adam would have said, but are they eating them in Kentucky?
And then kind of a piggyback question on that. Do you think with our free market being challenged today with the younger generations growing up as far as free enterprise, that private innovation could be under threat, and what would be the effects of that?
We have not had free enterprise in the United States or in the world since the Romans introduced weights and measures. Free enterprise in and of itself, human behavior which is not regulated by a code of morality, puts its finger on the scale. Doesn't give you a gallon of gasoline. Every time you drive into a gas station, that gas pump has been checked by the government to be accurate. You cannot have free enterprise unless you have a strict code of morality that people are willing to follow. And if they're not willing to follow it, if when told to turn off their telephones, their cell phones, they don't, well, under those circumstances, you have to have a regulatory agency. And today, I have had the pleasure of being that regulatory agency. Thank you all for